there, Someone Say Whiskey. If you're watching this, you probably have purchased one of these awesome tasting kits. So Nerelia from the club, she was kind enough to come up with this idea. She worked at a liquor store, and she kept having everyone come in and ask for the same allocated whiskeys, and thought, hey, what if we could expose whiskey drinkers to some of the shelf products that are available that they may be overlooking. Maybe they don't know the label, or maybe they're afraid to buy a bunch of unknown bottles and potentially end up with things that they don't like. And so she put together this program where she will split the bottles up at cost, and you'll get a 1 ounce sample of a bunch of different shelf available products so you can try them out, and then you'll know which ones to go buy. And she has asked me to do a short video of me tasting each one of the bottles that came in the kit for October. So I think I'm going to start with this guy right here. This is the Four Roses small batch, 90 proof. And first off, whenever I'm tasting, I like to use a Glencairn glass like this. This is not technically the Glencairn brand. That's like saying Kleenex instead of tissue. But it's a tulip-shaped glass like so. And it was originally designed for drinking whiskey, so you should be able to nose properly and get all of the flavors. I will tell you, this is a Someone Say Whiskey Glen, which we're about to have available, but you'll see that some of it's missing because they're hand wash only. And I put this guy in the dishwasher a couple times, and all the red came off. So let's start off. If you're following along at home, you got a little card that has each one of the whiskeys on it, so that you can read the tasting notes, and you can write down some of your notes and rate each one of these whiskeys. So whenever I am getting to know a whiskey, I nose it in the glass. I usually nose it more out of my right nostril. I guess I'm right nostriled, like some people are right-handed. And it will sometimes help me if I open up my mouth a little bit and I breathe in through my mouth and my nose at the same time. It takes a little of the ethanol out and allows me to get a little bit more of the more nuanced character from the nose. And one of the things that I always get on Four Roses, and by the way, Four Roses small batch is one of my daily drinkers, is it's got a higher intensity of fruit and floral notes. So there's a little bit of this that smells like, all bourbons are gonna have the, vanilla and caramel. Sometimes the caramel tastes more like toffee or something like that. But this is a little bit more floral, which I enjoy. Four Roses also has a much higher content of rye in it, which will give it a little bit more spice. So I'm getting a little bit of clove on this as well. Let's see, it says mellow spice, rich fruit, hints of sweet oak and caramel. And I am getting, when I hear the term sweet oak, I think of a little bit of a smokiness like a scrub oak campfire that you would make when you went camping. But on the nose, I think this is lovely. It does smell a little bit light. It's only 90 proof, but this is, I guess in beers, they have sessionable beers, and above a certain ABV, they don't really consider it sessionable, meaning you can't drink it, for hours on end. But a 90 proof bourbon for me at the pace that I sip is actually pretty sessionable for me, since I drink a lot of cash drinks. So let's taste it. So it tastes like it smells, but more intense. A lot of rice spice, so a lot of clove, nutmeg, cinnamon, baking spices, a good bit of vanilla. And let's see, what's it got on the tasting note? Mellow, ripened red berries. I'm not sure I'm getting red berries on this. That's a weird thing about Four Roses, is it tastes fruity, but it's hard to put your finger on which fruit it is. And that's okay. The finish is a little bit short on this, but overall, especially for the price, quality-price ratio, pretty darn good whiskey. Now, I didn't specifically say this when I started to taste, but whenever I do get the whiskey in my mouth, I like to let it coat my entire palate. I like to get it on the outsides of my teeth, underneath my tongue. and then swallow. And I kind of pay attention. There's what they call I call it the front end, but I think technically in wine tasting terms, it's the attack. So what I taste right off the bat, the mid palate and the finish. And for me, typically up front is where I taste some of the sweeter notes. Like that's where I'm getting the vanilla and caramel. And then in the mid palate's usually where I'll start to taste some of the fruit. And then the finish is where I'll taste the effects of how long it was in the barrel. So that's sometimes where I'll taste the smokiness. That's where I'll taste like dark chocolate notes and things like that. And then after you get done with each whiskey, I recommend that you keep a rinse bottle around. And you know, at my house, they say that they're a rinse bottle so that people don't drink out of them. And I have these lint-free rags, and I like to rinse my glass out, drink the water, which at a tasting can become pretty important to stay hydrated. And then I use the lint-free rag to dry my glass out, because especially when you're doing a small tasting like this, even a few drops of water can affect the flavor of the whiskey. And so we want to absolutely clean glass in between pours. So next we're going to check out this pure Kentucky small batch. And this is an interesting one for me because I don't think I've had this one. If I did, I think I tried it at a tasting, but I don't think I've ever owned a bottle of this. And so let's check it out on the nose. On the nose, it's got something that's a little bit funky. It's a sharper smell. It's a little bit of an ethanol burn, but I don't know, it almost smells like a different spirit. Maybe some spearmint or something. Yeah, it's a little bit sharper. You see on the nose it says it has toffee. Now toffee for me is like a caramel smell, but more of a burnt sugar flavor, where, you know, like toffee is caramelized sugar. And I'm not getting that. I'm getting a little bit of fruitiness. There's a little tiny hint of banana. I'm not sure what the other fruit would be. Probably more along the lines of a tropical fruit. It's not a cherry. It's not orange. It's probably more like pineapple. And maybe some mint. It says eucalyptus on here. And then oak. I'm not getting oak on it. And then on the palate, yeah, on the palate, the banana's coming through a lot more. There's definitely a little isoamyl acetate in this bad boy, but in a good way. I do like this. A little bit of spice on the finish, not too much, but a little bit of that cinnamon flavor coming through. But all in all, pretty good. And considering it's 107 proof, it's a pretty balanced whiskey. You know, 107 can be pretty hot on the palate if it's not balanced enough, but I feel like this one's doing pretty good. I like this one quite a bit. At $35, I think this is a buy for me. I like that. So next up, we're going to try the Lone Elm Small Batch. If you are part of the club, you know that we just released the first ever cask strength non-chill filtered Lone Elm Small Batch that they've ever released, because normally all their small batch is proofed down to 90 proof like this one is. Lone Elm is a Texas red winter wheat straight wheat whiskey. So it's 90% red winter wheat, 10% malted barley, and it has a very interesting nose and palate. So this is one that when they say there's oak on the nose, there's oak on the palate, I'd have to agree with it. This whiskey, for a 90 proof and as young as it is, this whiskey's probably 4 to 5 years old, is very dark. We get lots of extraction out of the barrels out there at Lone Elm. So lots of wood flavors, lots of vanilla, lots of oak, and then the fruit component on this are darker fruits. So I always get a lot of cherry, but what I also get out of this is really awesome is dried dark berries like acai berry. I get a dried blueberry, that kind of thing, and almost always chocolate and spearmint, which is pretty interesting. And because of the extraction, always plenty of caramel, always plenty of vanilla. So let's taste it. Yeah, chocolate, cherries, dark cherries, little bit of that mint, spearmint flavor, but definitely some dark chocolate. Really, really good whiskey. $45, supporting the local distillery, can't go wrong. All right, next up we have this guy. This is the High West American Prairie Straight Bourbon Whiskey Blend. So not exactly sure what that means. Typically, if it says that it's a blend, then it is adulterated. But that may have just been some weird verbiage. Maybe they just mean blend. Sometimes there's whiskey from multiple states in it, which means it can't be a straight anymore. And so they call it a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. Not exactly sure on this. Let's see. Blend of straight bourbons, at least 2 years old, making a great sipper. So it says it's a blend of straight bourbons, which means it should not be adulterated. This should be actually pure whiskey with no additives. So let's check it out on the nose. Yeah, I'm getting a little, some grainy notes. Often I'll get a corny sort of a flavor, and maybe it's like a candy corn kind of flavor because it is sweeter on the younger whiskeys. There's a little bit of a perfuminess that's coming out in this that I like, a little floral component. It says it's got a candy corn flavor, maybe some honey. There's some sweetness to this. At first, it was hitting me a little too hot on the nose. It says 90 to 95 proof, but now it's starting to come off a little bit more balanced. Yeah, that's what it is. It looks like it's got some of their 2-year product in it that they make, and then some 13-year product that's probably from MGPI to give it a little bit more depth. But yeah, I mean, there's some interesting characteristics to this. Little young grainy note, a little bit of honey, little bit of floral. I don't get bread biscuit, but it's on here. Let's taste it. Yeah, good bit of banana on that, actually. And when I say banana, the compound's isoamyl acetate. People make fun of me for tasting it, but there is isoamyl acetate in pretty much every bourbon. It's just how high the level is, and that has to do with how they did their cuts, what their fermentation temperatures were, what their yeast strain is. Some yeast strains produce more isoamyl acetate, and it does evaporate over time, so sometimes younger whiskeys have more of it than they would if they had been aged for a longer period of time. But a good bit of banana in a good way. Getting a little bit of spice. Getting that young corn whiskey flavor. And of course some vanilla. But all in all, pretty good at $35. I'd probably rate that a buy. Be a decent drinker. Wouldn't be mad to drink this. It's pretty good stuff. Lastly, we have this Hirsch Horizon straight bourbon whiskey, 92 proof. Says that it's aged 5 to 6 years. It's MGP sourced whiskey. And I will tell you that MGP sourced whiskey at 5 to 6 years is pretty young, okay? MGP doesn't have much temperature fluctuation. Their aging warehouses are brick buildings, so they're naturally insulated. They're along a river, and the river tends to maintain the ground temperature pretty well. The temperature swing is only about 10 degrees between winter and summer there, which is almost nothing. So 5 years isn't a whole lot. It's a $40 whiskey. And on the nose, I'm getting a little bit of B vitamin. So there's a whiskey out of Tennessee called Dickel, and it has a Flintstone vitamin flavor. So it's a fruit flavor, but it's also got a B vitamin note to it. And I'm not at all suggesting that this is Tennessee whiskey, but it does have a little bit of that. It's like a grape Flintstone vitamin flavor. What does it say is on the nose? Classic bourbon profile with sweet cornbread and vanilla. I'm not getting cornbread. Maybe I'm crazy. There's definitely some vanilla, but there's vanilla in all bourbon because there's a compound in oak called vanillin, and the whiskey pulls it out, and then boom, you get vanilla. Let's see how it tastes. Okay. Picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, the B vitamin doesn't come across as much on the palate. There is a little bit of that fake purple flavor, like almost like a purple icy pop. But there's plenty of vanilla, caramel. It says cinnamon. There's a little bit of a spice on the finish. A little bit of cinnamon on the finish, I'd say. But the intensity of flavor is pretty good. So this one would be one that I'd rate the aroma pretty low. But on the palate, it was pretty good. So at $40, I'm not mad at it. I think this one's a pretty interesting one. So anyway, all in all, not a bad bourbon in the bunch, and great way to try it. Hopefully you were able to find some drinkers that you'll be able to go in and pick up anytime, so you don't have to hunt as much as you used to get things to drink on a daily basis. So the reason why I put this together is I am an administrator of the Someone Say Whiskey Club, but I also have a podcast called Bourbon Real Talk. We do a whole lot of bourbon education over there, and when it's not educational, it's meant to be entertaining or thought-provoking. So would love it if you would check that out. Don't know if we're going to keep doing this for every release, but definitely for this first one, wanted to get you a little video that you could watch along while you tasted. And, hopefully this was enjoyable for you. Would love it if you would subscribe, like, review, comment, either on YouTube or on your podcast player, possibly both. Even if you're not going to consume the content all the time, it does help the algorithm so that we see, more people can find the content, because the algorithm thinks that it's good when you're subscribing, commenting, reviewing, things like that. And if you have any questions, throw them in the comments below, and myself or Norelia will get to them. And as always, if you woke up this morning and you're unsure whether or not anyone loves you, just know that I love you, and I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.